it's castle time. Okay? I'm at the point with the King Ghidorah build that I really need to start working on this castle. King Ghidorah's seams are taking a lot of time. What I mean by a lot of time is I do a little work, then they got to sit for 5 or 6 hours before I can even touch it. That's a lot of time. Half hour worth of work and then sitting around for that long? Time to get building on this. Now, this is the Nagoya castle. It's 1/350 scale. I actually have, watch this, 2 different castles. Okay? After watching a few of the Godzilla movies, I want to go with this castle instead of this one. Both unbuilt. You know, here, you can see I'm still working on King Ghidorah here. There's a piece of King Ghidorah's tail. Okay? So, obviously, I've been working on this before I even open this. But here, what I'm going to end up doing is elements of both castles. Yeah, I'm right. You'll see that in a second. You'll explain why. Let's review this kit first. Box looks real bad. I got this from an American seller for little to no money. Okay? These things usually are coming from Japan. We get inside the box. You can tell I've opened and looked at it, but the parts are still sealed up in their baggies. We've got 2 sprue here, 1 sprue here, 2 sprue in here, and a base. Okay? And directions. Let me set the box aside, and I'm going to open up the bags. Blah, 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 blah. Open up the bags, and we will take a look at what we've got. So give me a second. Okay, got the parts laid out on the table. First we're going to talk about directions. Directions are black and white. They're fold-out style. Of course, there's no English because they don't really think they'll sell these in the United States, and I can see why. Because you got to be a different kind of person to buy a Japanese castle model. But anyhow, this is going to be pretty simple to build. I don't really think I'm going to have a hard time building it. The hard part's going to be painting it. The reason I say that is trees, they're easy. You know, just give them some random shapes and put some good foliage on them and you have a tree. As long as they're random and not uniform, people will see it as a tree. The problem with buildings is people have immense experience with buildings, so if it looks even slightly off, they're going to notice. So I'm going to have to do some work on this to get this right. Now, again, I don't think I'm going to have a hard time putting the model together. That's not going to be the hard part. Because it's basically 4 walls and a roof. 4 walls and a roof. A little test fitting and everything will go fine there. Parts. Let's talk about them. There are 3 sprues of roofs, 2 sprues of walls, and a base. Okay? The roof details are pretty good. I don't see any issues with the roof details. This is molded in color, but there's no way I'm going to keep them this color because this thing has a jade green roof. Okay? And these accents are dark green. So all this is going to have to be trimmed and trimmed off the sprues and painted. No way around that. I'm going to do some nice shading on these roof lines if I can. But you will notice that there's some good details in those roofs. Let's zoom the camera in so you guys can see it a little better. I'm not going to zoom it a whole lot. Okay. You can see there's some nice ribbing on these roof panels. And little or no flash. That's the happy thought here. There are pin marks on the undersides, but that doesn't show. Roof panel number 1. Roof panel number 2. This castle does have 2 buildings, so I'm going to have 2 sets of roof panels. Okay. And roof panel number 3. This is for the main castle. This one here stays a light gray color, whereas everything else is green. Don't know why they did that, but they did. Okay. So there's the roof details. Now we get to the walls themselves. They're white. The castle itself is kind of an off-white. So these all got to get painted too. I can't leave them this color. But this should be pretty simple painting because I'm literally just throwing a little bit of paint at them. The bad part is there is some registry marks where they are supposed to be nice and flat on these 2 walls. And I'm going to have to get rid of those. Lots of pin marks on the interior. Just lots of them. Not worried about that though. So the only real challenge part I see are these 2 flat walls right here that have to be taken care of properly. That's the only real challenge I see to those. And again, here's the main castle walls, the exterior parts. Here's another one with a bad mold mark. But for the most part, that's all good. The inside, pin marks everywhere, no issue. The base itself, okay, is not quite level. This is an older model, so I can see how that could happen. A little bit of time with a hair dryer, and I might be able to get that to deform back into place. There's some good textures on the base, so let me zoom in on that. You can see the textures are in place. I thought about covering this with stone, then changed my mind simply because these corner details I'd never be able to replicate. Never ever be able to replicate these corner details. So I am going to leave this as it is. Okay? And looking at the photos of the main castle itself, this is very representative of the main castle. So I'm not too worried about that. Well, there's a review of the castle kit itself. Now, the grounds around the castle. There is a wall around the castle and a moat around half of it. I will probably replicate the moat. The walls too, but I'm not going to follow the blueprints. This is more about building a diorama and having fun instead of being a rivet counter. And I'm not going to be a rivet counter. I'm not trying to make this thing 100% accurate. I'm more trying to depict a scene. Okay? So I'm going to do some accurizing. Don't worry about that, but I'm not going to make it 100%, if that makes any sense. Scale's pretty small on this, and trying to make it accurate is going to be pretty hard. I am going to steal some elements from this castle, since they have pretty much the same basic architecture. What I'm talking about are these little outer buildings. And the reason I'm going to steal some of these little outer buildings is the Nagoya castle does have a wall around it, and on some of the corners there's little castle turret type things. I can steal those from here because it's the same architecture, same moldings, almost everything's the same. So I'm going to be raiding the Gifu Castle for those parts, so I can get that wall done. I also bought some sheet styrene that is almost the exact same stone pattern as this, and I'm going to use that to help me make some of those walls with, because those walls are about as tall as this with those turrets on them. So they got to be fairly good. The good thing is they're not curved like this. They are nice and straight walls. It's forming more of a V shape. Okay? So there's the castle layout. Hopefully you enjoyed. I'm going to get started on this castle very soon. Ghidorah's seams are still kicking my hiney. I haven't figured them out yet. And that's slow work because I do an experiment on the seam, and you can see some of that right here. And then I wait for that to set up to see how it took. Okay? And I'm still not getting it quite right, and I'm still not happy with it. And I'm thinking about shortcutting a little bit. Well, you'll see when we get to that. Okay? Good thing is I can progress on the necks just fine because they don't have the molding detail that the other parts of the body has. So it's a lot easier for me to work on the necks than the tail and the legs. So there you go. That's a quick update.